All right, so what did I miss in the deliberation room?
Not much. It was just a lot of fighting, some blood on the floor. We had to get
Leg
a
wrestling.
professional carpet cleaner in
wrestling.
there. Yeah. No, it was pretty interesting. I mean, it was there was a lot of discussion, a lot of really good back and forth about some of the brands. And I think one of the most interesting things about this competition, and what differentiates it from other editions, is just the variety of products that we saw. It wasn't all beer.
Yeah.
Non-alcoholic products, functional beer, kombucha, all these different kinds of forward-thinking beverages for this industry. And one of the things that really came up among all the critiques of the presentations was this notion of mission and understanding mission, knowing who you are, knowing who you're selling to. Karmen, what did some of the brands do right when they were talking about their mission?
I think that in 90 seconds, you have to have a really dialed presentation. So for those of you who weren't there yesterday, there were 8 contestants, and they had 90 seconds to pitch their brand. So it's an immense amount of pressure, and you have to be very, very clear about who you are in that amount of time, and even in the double that, 3 minutes. So it really becomes clear who knows who they are and who they're targeting in those moments. And to me, Sufferfest did a really great job at understanding exactly who they were going after. I think the thing that rang true about that is that it spoken truth. It was, you guys represent that yourself, and those are also the folks that you're going after. So you sort of live and breathe it, kind of like what Bryant was talking about today and his team at Ryan Guys. So that stood out for me.
And Tom, there was a lot of discussion about transparency. That Nutrition Facts panel that we saw with some of the brands really stood out for the judges. Why?
I think Athletic did it really well because they use the universal nutritional label, right? It's something we all understand. We see it on every food item that we get. And that transparency, I think, is going to parlay into beer itself, so we should be prepared for it. But there's a lot of folks that are trying to shift that paradigm and use their own model or design aesthetic for conveying that, and it gets really hard to read. We are all familiar with that that vernacular and that nomenclature of the nutritional panel. I would really highly recommend anybody who's doing that use that, because Athletic did it really well.
Tom, you're also a stickler for consistency, and there was some issues with consistency between what you tried yesterday and what you tried today. Why is that such an important factor for a young brand?
I don't know how much of it is time and place and where I was at personally, but there were some beers today that we tasted that were oxidized. It's really hard to get past shelf life stability issues if you have some degradation. When you're bringing your A game, make sure that you're having people taste the beer you want them to taste and that you think you're going to win with. Really think about how you're positioning that beer to be memorable. And at the end of the day, make sure you're tasting it before you offer it up to a judge, because if we taste oxidation or if we taste DMS, the bare minimum is you got to make great beer, and it has to be flavor defect free. And if you can't do that, that's just a detriment.
And Karmen, education was also one of the things that the judges kept talking about. Some of the products, some of the brands might require a little bit more education than others. Where did some of the brands succeed in presenting their product, or at least educating consumers about who they are on the front of the package, and where did some of them falter?
Yeah, I think the especially so moving outside of beer, we finally opened it up to categories outside of explicitly beer for the inaugural pitch slam, and that inherently opens itself up to more communication around educating the consumer around what it is that they're drinking. In thinking through some of the participants, New Motion stands out as the hard kombucha category as a whole. I think has there's some work to do around need state. So thinking about the need state for kombucha itself and the need state for an alcoholic kombucha, they're two different things. So sort of like separating those two, I think there is some education around that specifically for New Motion. They have 2 lines, one very low alcohol, one higher alcohol. So education around that. We also talked about the education for Superbrew and making sure that folks understand this made-up thing that it is. So I think education will be very important with anything that is on this adjacent sort of beer category.
And not just for the consumers, for the retail customers, for your distribution partners as well, right, Tom?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges too when you come out with new products is the wholesaler network is a very beer-centric market, right? We understand beer, we know how to sell it. Sometimes there's challenges even in that, But when you bring them something that they're not familiar with and that they don't have a language to talk about or understand, you've created another obstacle before you even knew it. And so if you can get past that symbolic obstacle, you've got to go and educate not only your wholesaler, but all your sales folk, and make sure that you're aligned, that you're telling the same story, that everyone understands what they're trying to ultimately accomplish. And if you can't do that, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And for me, it's just another obstacle. People really got to get their heads wrapped around some of these new functional beverages.
All right, I think it's time to announce the winner. But we'll actually go to Chris Bernari for his final thoughts. Chris, what do you think of the finals?
I mean, I thought they were great. You guys asked some amazing questions and had some great feedback. And
should have been in deliberation.
I mean, I'm just amazed at how far this whole competition has come from sort of the first time we did it, and seeing all the brands come through and the different products that are being sampled. I think of a product like the Willie's Superbrew and how sort of aspirational the goals are for that brand, and it's kind of inspiring. Whereas, sure, you might not know what a Superbrew is today, but that doesn't mean that we might not be talking about that product in a few years. And I don't think that things need to be so defined. That was like sort of one takeaway for me, or one, I guess, enlightening moment, which is like, yeah, maybe in 3 years we're talking about Superbrew and everybody just knows what it is. I mean, that could be a very real possibility. And then the other takeaway was just, what we've been talking about this whole conference, the health and wellness and the non-alc and the kombuchas. And it seems like entrepreneurs now are more willing to find areas to play around in and explore in that are just so non-traditional from the way the beer category has traditionally been. And I think that's great. I think that's kind of what the beer category needs, whatever we are defining as the beer category. I thought it was pretty awesome to see the diversity of products and the diversity of participants. And I'm excited for what's next.
A blurring of the lines, so to speak.
Perhaps.
When the smoke cleared, though, in that deliberation room, and it was a very, very close vote.
I have a gray hair for every pitch slam. And stuff. Yeah,
Extremely close vote, but there is a winner. And the winner of the Brewbound Pitch Slam and $10,000 in marketing dollars is Willie Superbrew. Well done.
Damn.
Nico Enriquez, come on up to the stage. There he is.
Nice, man. Congrats. Don't forget your giant Stanley Cup.
Well done. Good job. And there's your trophy. And we have our photographer who's going to take some photos.
Get in here with these guys. Here, step up front. You can hold it. Here, hold it with two hands.
Two hands, all right.
Yeah, there we go.
Never held a trophy.
All right. Well, congratulations, man. 2018 Pitch Slam champion, Willie Superbrew. Round of applause. Round of applause for our judges. Thank you guys for coming to Brewbound Live. And let's go have a beer, and hopefully we see you next year. Cheers.